welcome back to the One Step Forward podcast. I am your host, Tess Janelle, and I thank you for joining us today. Today's episode is called Called to Care, and it's about honoring God through the gifts that He has given you, how to find those gifts, how to use those gifts in your everyday life, and how your purpose is ready now, not when your life is perfect or you feel qualified, because God has called you and you are qualified regardless of where you are in life. I am recording this episode outside today, so if you hear a little wind or the birds or something, I hope it's more relaxing than annoying. I'm just trying out a couple different things. I feel like just kind of the nature aspect puts a really calming vibe to these podcast videos, and that's really what I want for this, is for you to be able to sit and listen and relax and really take in the messages and think about the ideas that we talk about on this podcast. So what if the life you're living right now is already part of your purpose? I find that so many of us spend our lives waiting. We're waiting for ourselves to feel qualified. We're waiting for the breakthrough, a dream home, a complete healed version of ourselves. Seasons where we feel complete, where we're not behind on anything. But the reality is, no matter what season of life you're in right now, no matter what's going on, God is already there. God is there in the ordinary, the quiet moments, and everything in life that we just overlook. This episode isn't about pretending that life is perfect, because it's not. It's not about ignoring hardship and forcing positivity. It's about learning how to live with reverence, to slow down enough to notice the gifts that God has already placed around us. I have a couple verses that I wanted to share surrounding this episode topic. The first one is Psalm 118:24, and it says, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." Not someday, not when everything is figured out. It's talking about today. And I think there's something very deeply healing about learning how to honor the life that you already have, how to have gratitude, and how to have fun with life while it's happening, not after. If you listen to my podcasts or my content all over, reels, whatever it is, I talk quite a bit about sacred living. So what does sacred living really mean? Because I feel like that's very general, and I'd like to just take a couple minutes to dive into it and really explain what I mean by sacred living. I feel like culture turns everything into romanticizing your life, like aesthetics. You go anywhere, you go on really any social media, YouTube, books, really everything right now, they're very heavy on romanticizing your life, being the main character in your life. You have all these videos of the pretty coffees, the slow mornings, the matching outfits, the perfect workout sets, the shimmery lighting. Sacred living goes deeper than appearances. It's being present. It's having gratitude and awareness. It's understanding that God intentionally created beauty for us to experience, for us to indulge in and have joy in. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, it says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." Sacred living looks a lot different in everybody's life. For me, it's become the small things, like making breakfast with my husband, opening up the windows on a sunny day, caring for my home, taking just a little walk, being able to move my body, the connection I have with animals, and being able to take anything with your hands and creating it into something beautiful. And it's not because all of these things make you productive. It's because they remind you in the little moments that life matters, even if they're a small part. Now, when we talk about living in God's purpose, I think we've made it feel very intimidating. Like there's some high standard that we have to get up to, like we have to prove that we're enough for God to use us, and that's just not the truth. You feel like everything has to be public, huge, impressive. But sometimes purpose is a lot quieter than we expect. Sometimes purpose can be through loving people well, nurturing what's been entrusted with you, creating beauty, offering encouragement, bringing peace into small spaces that you're in, and by staying soft in a hardened world. We look around and we think that the work we do to stay soft in a hardened world doesn't do much, but you would be surprised how many lives it touches and you don't even realize. So that is something I really prioritize in my life, and I always encourage others to do that as well. I like to reference back to 1 Thessalonians 4:11, where it says, "Aspire to live quietly and to mind your own affairs." There's freedom in realizing that your life doesn't have to look loud to be meaningful. You don't have to become someone else to walk with God. You just have to be faithful with where He has already placed you. I think sometimes we spend so much time looking at our goals and aspirations, where we want to be, and how we are going to serve where we want to be someday, and we forget that we can still serve where we are right now, where God has placed us. It's very easy to compare the two, and that really steals a lot of joy from your life. The moment you stop measuring your life against everyone else's timeline, your timelines, whatever it might be, you start noticing very slowly, but it adds up over time, how much beauty already exists right now. Everybody has different gifts that God has given them, whether that is discernment, whether that is communication skills, whether that is through art, whether that is through something that you have studied. No matter what it is, God has given you a gift that you can use to better His kingdom. And in the past year or two, I've really dove into that and tried to see my life right now, in the present. What gifts has God given me that I can use? And I came up with a short little list. One is animals and nurturing. I feel like something God has given me from day one is the gift of nurturing. The way I care for animals and connect with them, the way I become soft and they naturally come to me. For a long time, I minimized that. I didn't think it was that important, and I didn't think it really mattered that much. But God gives different gifts to different people. In Romans 12, it talks about how we all serve differently. And nurturing isn't small. Caring isn't weakness. Gentleness is not useless. There's something sacred about making another living being or a living thing feel safe. Another thing I had put on my list is creativity and content. This has been something I have known from day one, but as life shifts, our hobbies, our interests, what we have access to also shifts. And in the past, I found a lot of purpose I made a lot of songwriting at my church and everything. And as life shifts, as people move to different places, as our resources get different, life changes and life shifts. And finding that shift to where I still felt my purpose and my gift to where I could use that for the honoring of God was a little difficult. And I just feel like in creativity, that creativity is worship when it comes from the truth. When you're not trying to perform or chase validation, but you're just expressing yourself honestly, you're storytelling, you're telling your testimony, you're creating, and you're connecting with people through that. And through my content and through my creativity, I really try and encourage people to slow down and ultimately feel less alone. In Exodus 35, it talks about God giving people creative abilities and craftsmanship through His Spirit. Creativity is not separate from purpose. For me, it is purpose. The last thing I put on my list was love and relationships, because I see so many different dynamics, and it's funny that I'm saying this because this is through a podcast that you are listening to on the internet or your phone, whatever. But I feel like we have forgotten the plot that love requires presence and love requires intention. And even just having your phone in your hand, there's so many scientific studies proven that just having your phone in your hand or your pocket, you're subconsciously thinking about your phone. You're subconsciously waiting for it to go off. You could have a conversation with somebody and your phone goes off, like a text or something, and you're still focused on the person, but your mind isn't fully there anymore because you have gotten sidetracked. In Ephesians 4:2, it says, "Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love." And I think that love becomes sacred when we stop treating it casually, when we realize that caring for people is one of the holiest things we can do. I also talk a lot on my pages about being quote-unquote too much, or quote-unquote loving too much, or anything along those lines. And I used to think that it was something to be ashamed of, but now I don't. I love hard, and I care hard, and I think of people a lot. And I used to think of that as kind of annoying, kind of overstepping, kind of a lot for people. And for some people, it's going to be. But I have learned that that is not something I should be afraid of. That is not something I should be ashamed of. That is something that I should live wholeheartedly, because there is people out there who are going to be reciprocal. I think that's the word, reciprocal, to that kind of love, and who need that. And I thank God every day for making me soft in a hard world. I thank God every day for helping me to be there for other people. And that's not something I take lightly. I also like to talk about the smaller things that aren't related to other people. That's related to yourself and your well-being and how it honors God. How we take care of what God has entrusted with us. And that includes our body, our relationships, yes, our gifts, our home, our mind. And we look at all these things as discipline, like nourishing our body with the food that God has given us, not everything processed in the stores. And yes, I'm just going to throw this out here so you don't come at me. It is okay to indulge and have a little sweet treat, a little whatever every once in a while, because balance is key. But taking care of the body that God has entrusted you with, your home, taking care of your home, your mind, maybe that's meditating, whatever that is, therapy, taking care of your mind, because God has ultimately, it's your body, but God has given you that body and He entrusts you to take care of it. I hope that this episode has allowed you to slow down. Be still and know that I am God, it says in Psalms 46:10. I think so many of us are so exhausted because we never stop consuming, rushing, proving, and performing. But God asks of us to slow down so that we can actually experience life and not just survive it. I have a couple gentle reflections for the listeners today. What has God placed in your life that you may be overlooking? Where are you being invited to slow down? What gift have you minimized because it seems too small? What would change if you treated your life like it was sacred now and not someday? You don't have to be a completely different person to live with a purpose. You don't need to become somebody else to matter. God is already present in the life that you're living right now. So take care of what you've been given. Honor it, nurture it, notice it, because maybe the ordinary things you keep overlooking are actually holy.